Alrighty, folks, recording a quick video here to give you on what you can do in Fusion when you are making your hazard designs. So we'll start here really fast with maker case. I will make my case, let's say 20 by 4 by 4. This is going to be my base hazard. Those are the outside dimensions, 1/8 thick because that's the 1/8 MDF we're using. I'm going to choose to make my box open. I'm going to have an open lid and I'm going to use these finger joints. And with the finger joints, you can kind of look and you can drag to make them wider or make them smaller and do what looks good to you. And I'll just pick something right here kind of in the middle-ish. Doesn't matter too much for what we're doing here. Then I click download as a DXF. But before I download, it's going to be just a little easier in my life if I turn off the labels, I think. Download as a DXF, it downloads down here, but if I click it here, I'm going to be sad. Instead, what I need to do is go to Fusion. In a new design, I need to go Insert DXF file here. So I went up here, Insert DXF. I need to pick the plane. I'll pick this front plane. I've got to click the folder to browse for it, find it. It's probably in your downloads here. It's in my downloads. Then it takes a second to load, but then when it does, I can click OK, and now I've got my box as a DXF, which is great. And the really great thing we can do about this is now edit this. So if we look at our hazard design here, and we open the attached plans to see it a little bit better, we see one thing we do here is on this flat edge, we cut out a box, because that's going to be the opening our ball is going to go through. So let's talk about how to do that. So I'll go to front view. I'm not in my sketch. Notice I'm in solid modeling, 3D modeling. I want to be in my sketch, so I can right click and say edit sketch. I could also double click if I wanted to. Now I'm actually editing this sketch and I see my two-dimensional sketch tools have showed up. The sketch menu has showed up. So one thing I want to do is I want to take my flat edge and I'm going to cut out a little box. That's what I'm looking at right here. And I know the box is going to be 2 inches tall by 4 inches wide. So I'm going to do that, and it's actually really easy. I'm going to use the 2-point rectangle tool up here, click to place a corner, and I can even right in here type 4, type tab, type 2, hit enter, and I've actually made my box 4 by 2 right there. And you can see when I highlight this gray, just by hovering my mouse over it, this is going to be a profile I want, which is really good. One thing I still want to do is I want to make sure this is oriented in the right place, left, right, because what you'll notice is I should be able to drag this, and it's not really where I want it to be. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to use a dimension. I'm going to dimension this side here and make it 8 1/4, and that kind of sticks it right in the middle, which is where I want it. And then I'm going to use the trim tool to trim away those lines. And all of a sudden, boom, now I have this. If I were to finish this sketch, I could extrude that. Sorry, folks, if there's a little delay there. Little interruption happened, but I'm back. So as I was saying, what I can now do, now if I use the extrude tool and I could drag this arrow, and what you'd see, if I wanted to, is that I could make a 3D model of my little cutaway. But I'm actually going to Control Z. I'm going to undo that because I'm not ready to extrude it yet, because I want to show you the other thing you can do. The other thing you want to do is add these holes, all these little small circles. What these are going to be for is to add your vex pieces. So I, in my plans, have made a bunch of different spots on the sides and on the top. You can put these anywhere you want, wherever you think you need your vex pieces to go. I'm just showing you places that I think might make sense if you're planning, doors on the side or some kind of windmill or rack and pinion on top. But to read this symbol here, this little circle with a line through it, it means diameter. And the TYP just means typical, so it means all these little holes have a 0.2 inch diameter. So that's super, super easy to do. I'm just going to zoom in, I'm going to create a circle, and I'm just going to pick anywhere, because for our purposes right now, it doesn't matter too much where I put it. And this comes up, and I'm just going to, while this is highlighted, this dimension, type 0.2, type enter, and I've made a 0.2 inch circle. Now, if I wanted to be really, really tedious. I could just do that a lot. Just keep making 0.2-inch circles and make it in a vex pattern. But that would take a long time. There's actually a really easy way to do it, which is to use the Create Rectangular Pattern tool. This tool is really powerful. So what it lets me do is first select objects, here where it says objects. So the object I'm going to select is my circle. So I'm going to highlight the circle and click it. And then the easiest way, in my opinion, to do it is use these arrows to drag out this way and drag out this way. And I can already see the outline I'm going to make. I'm going to make a 3x3 grid. But a really nice thing I can do is there's two types of what they call distributions. There's extent and there's spacing. So I'm going to use spacing and make the spacing a 1/2 inch 0.5 and same in the y direction 0.5. The reason I'm doing that is in this drawing here, what I see is I see that from this hole it shows me that it is 0.5 inches to the center line of the next hole. So I'm going to make this 3x3 of these outer. So like these 3x3, 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3. That's what I'm making right now in Fusion. And so I've made it 3x3 at 0.5-inch spacing, and I click OK. And now, rather than make a bunch of holes, make a bunch of holes individually, I've made 9 of them with just one command. Nice thing about this is if I realize, oh, I actually made it wrong, I actually want them to be smaller, I want them to be 0.156, I can do that, and they all update. So that's one really nice thing about it. Another thing I can do that in this case might be convenient, is good to know about, is what I want to see how I can do is how I can make these offset circles. So I've got the 3x3 that are 1/2 inch, but I see in Vex, there's almost this like every other that's only 0.25, only a 1/4 inch away. So there's more than one way I could do this, but something I like to do here is I'm going to click and drag to select 4 of them. Click and drag, these 4 are selected. And if I use the modify move/copy command, or I can type M on my keyboard, and I say create copy, I can move it in the X direction, which is this left-right direction, a 1/4 inch. And I can move it in the Y direction, also a 1/4 inch. And that has now taken my 4 pieces, but moved them over a 1/4 inch to the right, a 1/4 inch down. And if I click OK, now I see, oh great, I've made a new version of it. Now this one is dimensioned separately from the first one because it was a move copy, it wasn't a pattern command. So if for some reason I wanted these to be smaller, I could. I don't necessarily need to do that, but because it wasn't a pattern command, see how only that one changes, these 4 are not changing. So I would need to use some kind of strict constraint or pattern command if I wanted them to all change. But since I'm happy with the first one, they're all 0.2, I'm happy with them. And then we're good. And if I finish this sketch, if I were to now extrude this 1/8 of an inch, see by default none of those holes get selected, and so it would make those holes, which then when I were to laser cut those out, I could plug my Vex pieces into. So there you have it, folks. You can use simple rectangle and dimensioning to make this big hole, and then we can practice using the rectangular pattern, which is under here, create rectangular pattern. And we can practice using the move copy, which is here under modify, to get these cool circle patterns. And that's some cool stuff you can do in Fusion.